Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another straight up solo. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at not just Rurik Dawn of Kiev, but rather the solo expansion, the Stone and Blade. All right, so we're going to take a look at this and see what it looks like when you play it with all the expansion content put inside, and what does it feel like from a solo perspective to see if you want this in your collection or not. So let's take a look.
Okay, so there is a ton of different things going on in this game with the expansion and the base game all combined. So let me explain to you a little bit about what you're seeing here, and I'll specifically focus on what you get from the expansion versus the base game, and then I'll show you kind of how the game plays, and then we'll talk about it. So first and foremost, a couple of new things that you get from the expansion. You get this it's not a peasant mutiny, but this rebellion situation here where you've got the neutral player or the rebels. In the case of the solo, it's the neutral player rebelling, and what you have to do is basically deal with whatever effect they have. In this case, the neutral player is the red, and if you defeat them in the defeat condition, you can get a point. Okay, but every turn they're going to frustrate what you're doing. In this case, if you tax in any of these places where they are present, so for instance, if I did like a tax action here, even though I'm ruling that, it would still cost me an additional tax point to do that. Okay, so there's that. There's also these epic structures, of which you play with 3, and you put them, when you set them up, you put them in order, either top to bottom or left to right. And if the solo player ever builds one of those, they don't really build them, they just discard them out of the game, and they discard them left to right depending on the conditions, if they build them or not. The other thing you have are the ability to capture prisoners and put them in your dungeon, and when you do that, for every pair of prisoners or leader you capture, at the end of the round you have to discard them, and when you do, you get points for that. So those are the 3 things. Plus, they also added, I believe they added the intrigue cards. I know you could get these from the base game, but they also added them additionally to this expansion. And those are basically like one-round effects that change the game a little bit from what you normally do. Finally, they also added 2 different structures. So they added the ability to build stables and taverns. And those do different things depending on, they do different things than the original buildings. And then they also added, finally, a couple of more main characters. So they added her and Gleb, and then here we go, this person right here. And the ability for the solo player, the Automa, to play against someone besides the standard one person. They give you a few more options to play against, which I think is cool. So the expansion definitely added a lot of content, and in fact, I guess I would say doubling the amount of things you have to consider in this game from a standpoint of all the nuances. And so if you liked the base game streamline experience and felt like there was enough going on there, you may want to consider how much you'll be adding with this expansion. Now, you don't have to play with all that content at once. You can play with little bits here or there. But if you want, you can throw it all in. That's totally fine. I put it all in here for the sake of this demonstration, and I could say that after not playing the game for a little bit and then bringing it all in, it was a little overwhelming. They also add some victory conditions, I should say, not victory conditions, but to enhance your battle. So if you decide to battle more, every time you battle the even number of attacks on the enemy, you will gain more rewards. That incentivizes it. They added more of these cards here, the intrigue cards, which can be a little bit stronger, but also have a little more penalty from loss escapability. Some of them have you take 2 casualties. They added this whole deck here, which gives you variable starting conditions, which I think was good. And then a couple of new deeds that just enhance some of the things in the gameplay, and a few more of the ambitions. Like, for instance, this victorious one. This one wasn't in the base game because there was no way to get these victory point tokens. Now you can get them, through capturing here or in other ways depending on how the game goes. So that is what you have, and then you have all the base game content, which is still, when you're playing solo, you play in the green area of this board, which represents kind of the middle area. You don't play in the yellow or the brownish areas out there. You still have the same main conditions, which are sort of basically category majority. If you have, more of these things, for instance, at the end of the game, if you have controlled 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5 regions, including Kiev and Novgorod. Sorry. Then you get up to 8 points, but if you do a lesser amount of that, you get less. And the same things with how many adjacent regions do you build in, how much goods do you have on your boat, and then the warfare track of the person who's engaged in the most battles gets 3 points, and the second most gets 1. So that's about the size of it from from what you're doing in this setup and in the base game. The general gist of this game is you're trying to compete on those categories, like I just said. Plus, you can score some points with the expansion in capturing people, which I'll show you how that works. And you score some points with accomplishing these deeds, which I'll show you how that works later on. Also, if you can put down this rebellion situation, you get some points, and you might score points for these epic buildings that come out there. So there's lots of different ways to score. It's not just the area majority or category majority, I guess you could say, but that is the bulk of where you get at least half your points, if not a little bit more. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what the game play involves here. So the way this game is played is you are going to be the first player, and on your turn, there are 3 phases, I should say. The first phase is where you are going to basically do your strategy, and it's called the strategy phase. And you're going to use these advisors that have a number 1, 2, 4, and 5, and you can also unlock a 2 and a 3 as you get deeper into the game. It happens as the rounds go by. And you're going to put those advisors on one of these categories out here. There's 6 different categories. And you can basically decide, okay, well, I want to put my category or my advisor number 4, because it's strong, up here. So I will put this category at the top, the advisor at the top right away. And he will be the one, if nobody else goes there or nobody meets or exceeds, I should say exceeds, my guy, then he will get the top spot. But I could have also put the number 1 maybe on the tax thing or something like that, and risked that I might be pushed out. And what do I mean by that? Well, on the opponent's turn, if they play a number that is higher than you, they would bump you down like so, and you'd slide down to a weaker version of that action, okay? If they played the same number, they can actually bribe and pay some coins to get a better position. So for instance, the AI here starts with 3 coins. If he wanted to play his 1, he could. He would just have to pay 1 extra coin, and then that would effectively make him a 2 strength person, and he would be able to go first. Now, why is that important? Or I'm sorry, get the higher action. Now, let's say I decided later on I didn't like that. I still wanted to put up a bigger number. I could put up my 4 and bump him down still. Now, why is that important? Because the way that you resolve these turns is from lowest number to highest number. And that's a pretty clever thing. So in this game, the highest number usually secures you the stronger action. Okay, so for instance, in this case of building, you would build with 2 build points if you got to the top, versus 1, or versus having to pay 1 coin to build. But the problem is that the lowest number goes first. And so in turn order, you're going to do, everybody's going to do their number 1s first, then their number 2s and 3s, and so on. And so it's an interesting, unique mechanic in the fact that you want to get the best moves, but you have to figure out the order of operations and when that's going to happen. Why is that important? Because in this game, you have a lot of sequential things that sometimes need to happen before others. For instance, let's say I needed to take this territory here, okay, and that means I need to move guys or muster guys or get some people on the board first, then move them to attack. I have to make sure I do that in the right order. I need to make sure that I get the guys first, then move, then attack. And in order to do that, I need to make sure that my lower numbers precede the ones that I want to do in later turns. So it's a little bit to think about, because you're trying to plan all that, and they can be foiled, by the solo player or by your opponents in a multiplayer game. So what happens here? Well, after, let's just say, for the sake of argument, I decided to put my number 4 on that tax space, just like that. The way you resolve the automa is by this deck of cards, and this is actually fairly easy to do. You slip the bottom card out, and you will take a look. You will reveal what is the bottom category here. In this case, it is a number 3. Well, the 3 has the asterisk, and it's not actually in play yet. So we're going to go up one more to reveal the 4. And then we have to see which category the AI is focusing on right now. And in the start of the game, this particular AI, of which there are 4 difficulty levels, I'm playing on the second of 4, says, okay, you're going to use the ones that have to do with a cart. And so I go over here to the cart, and I say number 4 on the movement spot. So he is going to bring his guy over here, put it on the top of the movement spot. Now, how do I know if he would bribe or not? Well, if there is a coin, I'll just look at the top. If there's a coin on there, it says that you will bribe enough to exceed the person who's already there. If there's not a coin, but he has the same number, so if it was the 4 and 4, he would make up the difference and bump one more coin no matter what to get above me if that was the case. Okay? So that was his turn. So it comes back to me, and I decide, you know, okay, maybe I want to put down that muster action because I really want to muster, so I need to get some guys first. All right? So then I go back to him, and I reveal he has the 2. Well, the 2 doesn't help me because, again, that's locked up. Here's the second 2, and if we look at what he's going to do, he's going to put it in the build spot. But like I said before, he would bribe his way, if needed, to the build area, but there's nobody there, so it doesn't matter. Now, let's say I'd like to build more than, I'd like to get more buildings out there earlier on. Well, I got a 2 and a 5 to do it. So maybe I decide, well, I want to beat his 2, so I'm going to do the 2 with a bribe, and that will allow me to build in a stronger fashion. So we come back to him, we reveal again, he's got his number 1 now coming out on the muster spot, and just like I said before, his number 1 is going to exceed me because there was a single difference, or it was the same number, pardon me, so he bumps me down. And I have my 5, and on my 5, I could either attack, or I could double up on an action that I've already taken, or I could get one of these scheme cards. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to attack because I'm going to try to break some of these areas where I am not in control and try to get some control on the board here. So let's go ahead and put that 5 up here. And finally, what he is going to do is he is going to put his 5 on the tax spot, effectively bumping me to a lower situation. And there we go. So that is the strategy phase, and that will happen 4 times during the game, once per round, and then that's it. Then we remove, then we take this card, put it on the top, and from now on, build order and location order is going to be dictated by the top of this card. And then what you're going to use that for is to see if he's going to build a building, where is he going to build it, and then what building is he going to prefer. And then there's some other specific things for the expansion where it says, hey, if you've got 2 troops in the area plus, and there's 3 in a region, then he's going to build this instead of the standard buildings. And if there's 2 structures in a region already, he's going to build this and get the rewards instead of that. Otherwise, he's going to do this. So they give you a little bit of an understanding. This little thing helps you to figure out what is going to happen. And sometimes when you do his AI actions, you have to make decisions of if he rules, do this, if not, do that. And you have to look at these categories to see which kind of thing he's going to favor at the time. All right, in addition, one thing that's not going to happen that we would see here is if the AI takes this scheme action, instead of drawing scheme cards here, he is actually going to just remove one of these coins and add it to his purse, and that is going to upgrade his area. So it's going to make him more effective, and he'll remove the one where the bear is. So in this case, he would remove it, and it would say every time that he attacks, he's going to draw 1 less casualty. Okay, and all of these do different things. Like this means every time he builds even more. Every time he moves 1 more, etc. And there's a couple that are already pre-printed. Every time he's going to muster, he's going to get a coin. Every time he's going to trade, he's going to do it with 1 more trade point. So there's all these variety of things that the AI can do, and that is both a good thing and a little bit of a slightly exhausting thing. I'll tell you that while that AI card wasn't too bad to, figure out how to put his stuff out, that goes pretty well. It is a little bit of a mind crunch to say, okay, here's the conditions, here's what's going to go, here's going to happen. And I don't think there's any real other way you can get around that. This is a fully functioning Automa experience and does a really good job simulating a two-player game. Okay, so now that we have come to the end of the strategy phase, we're going to move into the action phase. And like I said before, on your turn, you remove the lowest number advisor and then do what it's supposed to do. Now, if you decide you don't like the action or you can't take the action, you can always remove the advisor and just get a coin. Okay, so that is always an option, but it's something you don't necessarily want to do often if you can avoid it. So to begin, you are always the first player, you're always the starting player in the solo game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to muster with 2 points. So to muster, it's basically you place 1 guy per point. You can place them at any spot you have presence, but you have to have guys there already. So I'm going to go ahead and muster here and I muster there. The reason being is because I want to solidify my rule in these areas by outnumbering whoever else is here. So now at the end of this round, I'll have ruled at least 2 regions and to get myself on the point board. So that turn is done, and then I'm going to go ahead and execute him. He's going to muster also, okay? So he's going to pay that into the bank. He's going to muster with 3 points. Now, we got to figure out, in his case, he's going to muster in places that he occupies but does not rule, and then places that he rules. And he's going to do it in order of the territory. So in this case, he does not occupy anything he doesn't rule, so he's going to skip right to the ones that are going to be ruling, and he's going to do it in order, but since he has 3 territories, and they're just going to go 1 per. So we're going to put 1 of his rebellious rebellers out here. All right, so he got 1, 1, and 1. So now he increases his strength in those regions. Now we go to number 2. So number 2, I'm going to build. When I build, discard that. I can choose to build in any region that I'm present in. If I rule the region, it costs 1 building point. If I'm just present there, it costs 2. Okay, so I am ruling in both of these regions, so I can choose some buildings to build. So I'm just going to make some hasty decisions here. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to build, let's go with the market. And the reason I'm going to build a market is because I want to start getting fish later on, and the market will help me do that faster. The other thing I could do, and I should have done this in the first place, before my special power, each guy has a special power, okay, each main guy. And it says, before you spend any building points on your turn, you may move Sviatoslav to an adjacent region with a rebel, or spend 1 coin to move him to any adjacent region. Well, in this case, the rebels happen to be the AI opponent, not the neutral player. It's a little confusing in that regard. So I'm going to move him over here, okay? And I'll put him out there and make that move. I still rule that area. And so I'm going to go ahead and build. And when I build there, I'm going to build one of these churches, and I'm going to convert this guy into one of my guys. And when I convert him, now he's gone. He's off the map. Now, just for point of clarification, I did not defeat that rebel. And these are not rebels, I should say neutral. It's a little confusing there, but I did not defeat that person. And so I don't count them as one of the 2 that I have to defeat there for that specific condition of defeating the peasant mutiny. So I have built my stuff. Now he is going to build his. And where is he going to build? He is going to look to, let's see, it says A, then B, then C. So A, no AI structures. Okay, that's all 3 of his places. Then B, no enemy troops. That's all 3 of his places. Then C, and if there are enemy troops going to build there, then he's going to build no enemy troops. Okay, so that means he will build here because there is an enemy troop right there. So what is he going to do? He is going to try to build in build order, which over here says a trade post as well. So he's going to build one of those. As you can see, that's the kind of decisions you're making here over and over again. Now let's go ahead and move quickly through the rest of the stuff so you can kind of see it and you get an idea, again, of most of the actions you take. I'm going to tax. I have 1 tax point, and in a region that I control, I can tax with 1 point to get the good here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this fish, and because I built that market there earlier, I get an extra fish, or I could get an extra coin. And I actually want the fish, and I'm going to put it over here because it's going to generate me some coins at the end. You generate money if it's on your dock. At the very end of the game, you're going to generate, or you're going to also generate stuff if you fill up your dock or your boat. And for goods on the boat, you also will start moving up there. But I want the money first, so I'm going to put them out over there. Okay, so I did that. Now he is going to move. This is one of the more confusing things of where he's going to move and how. He is in a situation right here where he has that, okay? So he's going to move to target region regardless of distance. He's going to leave at least 1 troop behind. He's never going to bail out and leave you to rule it. He's going to move to the closest region with troops, okay? When this distance is tied, the lowest location order, and basically that means you got to go over here and figure out what the deal is. And then here he's going to go to a place where he does not rule, okay, 1 region. So what he's going to do in this case is he is going to decide, okay, I'm going to look to see, am I going to move first out of here, Novgorod, or I'm going to move out of Kiev. In this case, Kiev is right here. It's coming up. So where is he going to move? So he's going to move there. Then he's going to move to a place and he does not rule in order to rule it. Well, which one is he going to move to? Well, these are both closest. So then he's going to look over here and say, okay, well, I'm going to move right here because that's the next name. So I'm going to take, I had 3 move points, right? So I'm going to go 1 over here. And then, let's see. I think I'm doing this right. This is one of the more confusing things, to be honest, about this game is doing the movement. And so I believe I did that right. Leave 1 troop, never secede, moves to a target region regardless of distance. Do not rule in 1 region, so he's going to go there, all right? In location order. I think that is basically it. So he's basically moving his guys over there. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to attack. So when you attack, you can attack with 1 attack per sword. So I'm going to choose a region where I have presence and there's an enemy. I'm going to choose this region first. I carry out my attack, and because I carry out my attack, I am automatically move this up 1. Actually, I take that back. When you do the neutral one, pardon me, you do not move your warfare track up. You simply remove this guy. Now, I can try to capture him and put him in my jail to get those 2 victory points, which I'm going to. So the way to do that is I randomly take one of these cards, top or bottom, and I see, and if it had a casualty there, I not only would I have to kill one of my guys, but I also have to fail the jailing maneuver. But I capture the prisoner, there is no casualty symbol, he goes over here. Then I'm going to attack again. In this case, I'm going to attack using my main hero, or whatever you want to call him, the leader. And because I'm attacking a person that rules that territory, I have to draw. That was an optional draw, by the way, right there. But now I must draw 1 that against the person that I'm attacking because he is my enemy. And then I must draw another 1 because he is ruling that area. So I'm going to probably have a tough time here, but I just want to show you, demonstrate what this is like. So let's draw that first one. Oh, stop immediately. Casualty. So what happens is I did kill him. You always kill the 1 guy. But I then got killed, and now I'm off the map. So I've lost my presence in that area. And of course, I did not capture him because I also died as well. But I did put myself on the leaderboard over here. Finally, we're going to do a tax action for the AI. And he is going to tax in the region. Let's see. It says he's going to tax with his unfilled boat columns and always in a spot where he has built that first, if he can. So the first thing he's going to do is he's going to tax there. That's going to give him 1 of these plus another 1. And then it's going to be whichever good that he doesn't have. Well, he doesn't have a lot of different things, but he can look and see if he can fill this. And since he can fill that first, I think that's what you would do. I'm not 100% sure if that's where you go, but I'd kind of play it like it's obvious because he needs 1 of these, so he's going to tax that. He takes it. It's possible that you may have to do it in location order, and if it is, I apologize. But I'm going to tax that anyway because that would be the logical move that anybody would do in his situation. We are finished with the first action phase. Now we go to the claim phase. And the first thing we do is look to see, have we fulfilled any of these claims? All right, so here, how many regions does he control? He controls 1, 2, 3, 4. So he automatically jumps right up here. And then we look at mine, and I control 1, 2. So I go over here. How many structures has he built? Well, right now, he only has one structure, and I have 2 structures. I started with one at the beginning of the game, and they happen to be adjacent. So I have fulfilled that. He has 3 goods on the boat. This was already dealt with. After we've determined that, then we figure out where his priorities lie. So he figures out whichever spot, if I'm ruling more than him, he's automatically going to go over here. If that's not true, if I've got more buildings than he is, he's going to focus on building. And if that wasn't true, then he'd focus on trade. And if that wasn't true, then he would do this. Additionally, for each category that I am ahead of him, he is going to now draw one of these upgrade coins and put that over here. Now he automatically has this extra modifier anytime he does anything. Oh, and by the way, I just realized I didn't give him the coin there, nor did I give him the extra tax point right here. And so he would have taxed again, and that would have been this area right here, let's just say. Okay. All right, see all the little nitnoid things? That's kind of a challenge sometimes. Okay, so then after we've done that, now we earn the income. So we earn income based on how much we filled in our boat. So he earns 1, plus he gets this little bonus thing at the end of the game. So 1, 2, and he will get 2 coins. And that little bonus thing is part of the expansion also. It basically lets you spend that as kind of a wild token. And for the AI, it'll just score in points. And I get 2 of these right here. So that's 2 coins as well. And you only get those when you've unlocked it in the case of having all of those spaces. And I don't have all those spaces in any of mine. Okay, then we're going to choose one of these. We got to refresh the conversion tokens. So we got to flip them face up. There's a little thing at any time during the game. You can spend one of these conversion tokens during your turn to make a conversion, to do something like that, to either muster or to do the hammer or to gain an extra attack. Okay. You can also spend, if you have any of these deeds cards, which is you're going to get right at this point in the game, one of these, do the thing on the top, get whatever it is on the bottom, score those points. So, for instance, I'm going to take this new beginning card. Okay, I'm going to take that I'll be able to use later on in the game. We're drawing up right there. The AI never draws one of those. And then we've got to replenish our empty goods on the board. And there you have it. So that was kind of long, as you can see, but that was the first round. You're going to do this 4 times, okay? And the rounds are going to get a little longer because there's a few more things to think about as you go. Plus, you're going to unlock, or you're going to end up unlocking, your extra advisors. During the second round, you also will do whatever this condition says over here. So in this case, during the second round, it says in turn order, each player may immediately buy or sell 1 good for 2 coins. So I could do that if I wanted to. And then I'm sure there's ways I got to look at the AI to see what they're doing. But that's it. Now, there's a lot going on there. There's a couple things I didn't show you. Number 1, when you choose to get a scheme card, that's how you can draw these cards. And when you draw these cards, you can hold on to these and spend them later to do what's on the top portion of them. They're all good in that case. But the cool thing about that is you can look at the top 3 or 2. You take one, you put the other ones back on top. So you get a sneak preview of whether you're going to have a casualty on the top of either deck. And you get to choose which deck you draw from and which deck the AI draws from when the time is right for the casualty draw, which you can use to your advantage to spare your own guys and kill some of his, which I think is a neat little mechanic. Okay, so that was a very lengthy demonstration of what it looks like to do a full round in this game. And now I will go ahead and tell you what I think about it. Okay, so that gave you a pretty full understanding of what it feels like to play a full round of this game. It's a 4-round game,
and it gives you the sense of how you make those decisions for the AI, both with those cards and then with the different parameters, if this, then that, and so on. All right, so some positives. First of all, this is a very good, solid, what they call dudes on a map game, which is kind of a genre that I don't have too many of. And not because I don't want them, but they're usually pretty hard to find good solo versions of these kinds of games that have this kind of mechanic that also play well as a solo game. This game plays very well as a solo game with regards to how does it feel when you are playing against the AI opponent. Now, that being said, I've played the game 3 times with the AI opponent. I've beaten them each time, and I've played them on the number 1 and number 2, and then number 2 level again. So I'm going to dial up the difficulty from now on when I play because I want a little bit more of a challenge. I'd like to see, what else it could give me. That being said, it's possible that I've missed some of these bonuses and things that have happened just by the sheer amount of different things you have to keep track of. So I'll come back to that in a second. From an execution standpoint about how does this player make decisions, it's really elegant the way you reveal these kind of cards and go across and see what they're doing. That really provides a great way for the the opponent to do what it's supposed to do and focus, whether it's focusing on expansion or building or trade or tax, I should say. And it really provides a thematic and effective feeling for going against an AI opponent. Now, most of these kinds of games, you're going to get more, more out of it with more players. However, because this game is pretty long in of itself, I don't think it's bad as a heads-up one-on-one versus the AI. So that's also good. In regards to the expansion, you do get a lot more variety. You get extra AI opponents. You get extra cards that flush out some more things that incentivize different strategies. You get those extra epic buildings, which change from game to game, which allow you to, again, flavor up the specific feel of the game. Those rebellion conditions for the neutral player in this case, not the rebels. Also changes things up. And then, that ability to capture prisoners further incentivizes taking those risks and not just turtling, which I think is really important because I remember in the base game feeling like if I can just sit here and hold on to my stuff, then I can turtle and then, that will be enough for me to just, get an early lead and stick it. Stick that lead and just build up. And when you have these other things in play, there's more of an incentive to attack and to capture and to cause conflict, which I think this game really needed and the base game really needed as well. And so I think that the expansion for those who like this type of game makes a lot of sense. However, it also adds a ton of additional complexity and steps, just things to keep track of. I'd say that's my first negative here. In this game, there is a lot of stuff to keep track of. It will benefit from repeat plays like everything, but it'll also take you a game or two just to kind of get that thought process going so that the flow of the game is smooth and not as exhausting as, you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with this? Am I supposed to be focusing on things I do rule or I don't rule? Where does he go? What's the location? You still have to do those steps, but it's really a little bit difficult, at least for me anyway, the first couple of plays until you get used to what you're doing. From a standpoint of strategy, there's a ton of strategy here, so that's a positive. It feels great to play against an automa in this case. It's not a beat your own score. You're trying to beat, the actual player, so that's also a positive. And, the varied different things you can focus on with the expansion now has really flushed out this game. And I also like the fact that you can put in, any of the 3 modules you want, or maybe none of the modules, and you just decide to play with a little bit of an enhanced vanilla experience. But honestly, I think that the easiest one to put in without any real headache is the epic buildings, because that just adds a couple of extra buildings to you. I did also like the fact that the expansion added 2 additional regular buildings, the stables, which basically gave you an ability to quickly move guys one time, and this basically like this inn, or the tavern, pardon me, which gave you a way to get a couple of coins quickly. And what else does it do? It also lets you play the top card from the scheme deck discard pile. So that's another enhancement. And I like that because I thought 3 buildings was just a little kind of ho-hum in the first one, but 5 is plenty. And then you got these epic buildings, so there's plenty there still. So I think there's a lot to like there. I think that what this game will be for those who want a really meaty, crunchy experience that you're going to have to do a lot of thinking about how to, plan your turn, what's coming for first, how much should I save to bribe. There's a lot of stuff to consider here, and that's good. Very puzzly in nature, I think, and that's also a plus. The biggest minus, I think, would be if you want to try to put all that in your head, right? You've got a lot of things to kind of take into account when you're doing stuff, and there's easy to miss bonuses and easy to miss little modifiers that you got to be paying attention for the solo opponent. The solo opponent also has, just like you do, a specific bonus on what does it do when anything happens in their region that you got to keep track of. So just a lot of stuff to keep track of, and that's a little exhausting, to be honest. I'm not sure if that'll fit everybody's catalog or collection, pardon me, because of that. There's just a lot to continue to figure out and to do. And because the AI has to be so specific in how it does things, it does require some overhead and some maintenance to try to figure out what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. That being said, I am going to keep it in my collection. It is a good game. It's a unique game. And I liked what the expansion did for it, adding additional incentives to break out of just kind of some of those strategies that the base game might have locked you into. So I hope that was really helpful for you. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. It really helps me out. And that's about the size of it. So whatever you play in the future, I really hope you enjoy it. Take it easy, everybody.